Did you know the FBI believes there are as many as 25 serial killers active at any given time? However, the Murder Accountability Project believes that number to be closer to 2,000. Welcome. I'm Jay.
I'm T.
We are Fatal Blend.
This is where we talk about two things we absolutely love. A little bit of coffee and a lot of true crime. Specifically, serial killers.
That is true. And we are 1 week closer to a new intro.
Okay.
It'll get done. I'm telling you.
Okay.
You keep saying okay, but it'll get done.
I was just counting it up. We're on episode 48, which means we literally have
got
4 weeks to figure out a new episode.
And there is a
new
lot
intro
going on in our lives right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in our lives.
Job
right now.
changes. I guess that's all that's going on in our lives.
But it's a lot.
But it takes a lot.
For that.
Yeah. What won't change is this. We will continue to do this forever and always.
Well, or until we run out of serial killers.
Which, it's gonna be, we're a couple years away from that based on your books.
Yeah, but I don't know some of them I don't know if we're going to end up doing. I want to do all of them, but some of them are so incredibly popular that it's kind of like, meh.
Yeah, we definitely don't like the popular ones. I mean, will we talk about them? Maybe at some point.
We have but it's
but
just not on my to-do list.
Yeah, you can throw a dart and hit a podcast that's done it. We want to focus on some of the ones that maybe you won't find other places and bring a little light to those victims. So as we get closer to the new intro, we're also going to have our little special episode that T's been working on. That'll be something cool to look forward to. Let's talk about what we're drinking.
Coffee.
Oh, sweet.
I'm just drinking coffee, just a plain cup of hot coffee. That's it. A little bit of cream, a little bit of monk fruit sweetener. Yep, not feeling anything special, so.
But to be honest with you, and again, this goes back to what we've talked about before, when we say plain coffee, we're talking about the Nespresso that we always felt was extremely overrated and people were bougie for having it. But guess what? We're bougie now, and I dread having it out of anything else besides the Nespresso.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I still prefer an actual old school pot of coffee.
Oh no, I'll
to the Nespresso. But if I have to pick a single serve convenient way to do it at home, I'm picking the Nespresso.
Yeah, I'm still down for a pot of coffee, and to be honest with you, sometimes going to a cafe, you get coffee at the cafe and get their little creamers and stuff. There's something about that.
Right.
That's good. But yeah, for sure, 100%. If I were to pick Nespresso over Keurig, it's got to be the Nespresso.
Well, because Keurig, after having Nespresso, it literally tastes honestly like watered down coffee. It's like there's not enough coffee which actually is accurate because they have the K-Cup pods are all the same size, but you can go all the way up to 10 ounces of water. But unfortunately, that's just not how it works. I guarantee if you were to pull an 8-ounce Keurig out of those K-Cups, it's going to taste very similar to the Nespresso. It's just not going to have the foaminess that Nespresso does, the creaminess. But as far as strength of coffee and not tasting like a watered down dirty bean water, because that's literally what it tastes like, it'll probably taste better. Well, and also, let's not forget that it also depends on the roast. I mean, right now we have Costco roast, and so.
And I don't know if it's just me, but I swear I don't get acid reflux from the Nespresso, but I do from the Keurig.
Okay, but that is the roast, because when I bought the Nespresso pods, I purposely picked the ones that were lower on the darkness scale. The lighter the bean, for those of you who don't know coffee, the lighter the roast of the bean, the less acidic the bean is going to be, therefore less acid reflux. This is why if you are somebody who has really bad, severe acid reflux from drinking coffee, lattes, espressos, it's probably because it's espresso. And if you have in your area the ability to try something called white coffee, totally try it. It does not taste like espresso. It actually has a completely different flavor, but it does have more caffeine, less acidity. And so for people who struggle with espresso, this could be an option. It really could be an option, but you got to like the flavor. It's an acquired taste.
Right. And for those hardcore people that just drink like espresso, this is not something to do that with.
No.
White coffee tastes like dirt.
No, it's got a nutty dirt flavor.
Yeah, when it's by
really
itself,
weird.
it is not good. But when you mix it,
but
absolutely
if you pull the
amazing.
shots correctly, it actually tastes better. There is quite a few places. To be honest with you, I have never seen a place pull the white coffee shots correctly, except for us when we had our shop, and that's because I did massive research on how to pull a good white coffee shot, and I realized that you have to double pull the shots, and I've never seen a coffee shop double pull.
No, it takes too much time.
It's not that it takes too much time. I just don't think they think about it. They just don't think that, because you would never double pull espresso. So why would you double pull something like that? But anyways,
All right.
What are you drinking?
I'm just sticking with my Nespresso with a vanilla creamer in it. My Chobani creamer,
We're
just
kind of
because.
boring today.
Yeah, every once in a while you got to be boring.
We've been quite boring for quite some time. And
All
that's
right,
just
next podcast we're spicing it up.
Well, no, it's just because with me being sick over the last however many weeks I was sick, you just don't feel like drinking coffee.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to what y'all came here for.
Yes. You want to know who we're talking about?
Absolutely.
All right. We're talking about Ronald Dominique. Ronald was nicknamed the Bayou serial killer. So if that gives you any idea of where this potentially could have taken place.
Could it be in the South?
Good call. He had 23 or more victims.
More.
His murder dates were 1997 to 2006. The location of these murders was
Nolland.
Louisiana,
Ooh.
USA. I mean, New Orleans is in Louisiana, so yes, but it's not.
I know.
Just
I went a little too deep.
And his method of murder was strangulation, and a characteristic of his murders were rape. So again, when you hear that a characteristic of the murder is rape, please know, trigger warning, there will be some discussion of rape in this podcast.
Unfortunately.
And because I suck beyond belief, I'm going to probably butcher a couple of these city names because I did not look them up on how to say them, and I'm just going to give it my best shot.
I thought you were going to talk about his background being like, he was born. Okay, now.
No, I actually have quite a bit of background.
Nice.
So this is great. So let's start.
Welcome back.
So Ronald was born January 9th, 1964, and he grew up in Thibodaux, which is a small bayou community between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So you are actually pretty close to. Now, he was the youngest of 6 children, and he grew up in a very, very poor household. And so poor that his whole family lived in a trailer park. They had no money at all, which is not a dig at people who live in trailer parks. I know some people are not very poor and just choose to live there, but this is all they could afford. So I'm just letting that be known. Now, during high school, he actually was a member of the Glee Club. Later in life, his schoolmates actually came out and admitted to the fact that he was teased as being gay, even though at the time he never actually admitted to being gay. He was also suffering from weight issues. He spoke very much like Eeyore, very depressed. And he struggled with communication skills. Basically, at the end of the day, his high school years were pretty fucking rough, and he was continually bullied.
Glee Club. That's singing?
Glee Club is singing and dancing. So maybe he did Glee Club, but I'm assuming because of the time frame, you figure if he was born in 64, he's in high school in the 70s, 80s. I can't do math, so I'm asking you.
Yes, late 70s, early 80s.
So if you're in the late 70s, early 80s, and you are a boy in the Glee Club that sings and dances, that probably would be something that would make people make fun of you. And he was a heavier set kid. He wasn't super outgoing. So yeah, he basically had a terrible life.
Yeah, I was more thinking about the ho-hum Eeyore voice, but then singing.
No, but I think he's saying actually sing,
Yeah.
but he just wasn't very good at communicating, and he was very just like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Whatever. Now, after graduating high school, he actually tried to attend Nichols State University for computer science, but he ends up not sticking with it for very long and drops out. And then he grows into an adult. And as he grows into an adult, he is actually known to his neighbors as a very helpful guy who is willing to do pretty much anything for his neighbors. He also, at this time, starts cross-dressing and he starts going to local gay clubs. He would actually impersonate Patti LaBelle. So this is where like the Glee Club thing would come in. He would come in like obviously singing, dancing, all this stuff. So he would actually impersonate Patti LaBelle. So when I was researching this, I will say, to hear them say, oh, he started cross-dressing and going to gay clubs, but then to follow it up with he would impersonate Patti LaBelle, I'm going to tell you right now, I just think he was like, maybe he is just a drag queen, which, yes, is technically cross-dressing, but also it's like there's a difference between cross-dressing in women's clothing as a male on a daily basis versus dressing up as Patti LaBelle and impersonating her at night at a gay club.
And
very
honestly,
different.
If you pick Patti LaBelle, like, get it.
But I'm saying, like, so maybe there is a chance that he wasn't actually cross-dressing. He was just a drag queen. So he would get dressed up as a drag queen at night to go to gay clubs. And it was reported that he was an awful Patti LaBelle impersonation too, by the way. It was reported that people that would frequently see him were like, he tried, but absolutely not.
It takes a special someone to try to pull that off. Patti LaBelle's amazing.
Many people who actually knew him in this part of his life, as in the man who would frequent gay clubs, they actually didn't like him, and they actually said that he did not fit in and he was not very nice. So he has two completely different personalities. In his neighborhood where he lives, everybody thinks he's great. He's nice. He's this humble, like overweight, short man who's just really nice. And then in the gay club scene, they think he's weird. They don't want anything to do with him. He doesn't fit in.
It makes you wonder which one was a persona versus which one was like truly him.
You know, I mean, I really think he probably could have been both. I mean, I think you can be both. I think he really probably was a genuinely humble person, but he wanted to live his life doing the impersonations or whatever. And when he would do it, people thought it was weird because he wasn't a good impersonator. And most likely they were probably not very nice to him. So therefore he would be mean. So that's my guess. Now on June 12th, 1985, Ronald is actually arrested and charged with sexual harassment committed via telephone. So for this crime, he actually ends up having to pay a $75 fine. Now, as Ronald continues throughout his life, he actually has a really hard time keeping a job. He actually was not even really willing to keep a long-term job, and instead he would live off of his relatives, mostly his mother and his sister, with whom he lived with on multiple occasions. So he just like wouldn't work. Now, in 1994, he gets arrested for drunk driving and again receives a fine for this instant, which again, he gets sexually assault somebody by the phone, fine. He gets caught drunk driving, fine. Like, put the fucking pieces together, people. So then on August 25th, 1996, a young naked male, like younger than 18, is seen jumping from the window of Ronald's sister's home. Ronald lives with his sister at this time. Now, the boy runs to a neighbor's house and tells the neighbors that he was raped by Ronald and that Ronald had tried to kill him. So they call the cops show up, they tell the story, Ronald gets arrested, and he is held on a $100,000 bail as they do this investigation. Well, when it comes time for them to prosecute, they were not able to find this young man as a witness. And not only could they not find him, but obviously they didn't have him to testify. They also did not know who he was. How the fuck you don't know who he is? So my guess is he gave you a fake ass name when he was talking to you. So this leads to a dismissal of this charge, which is fucking awful. Now on February 10th, 2002, Ronald is arrested again. Oh, and by the way, we will jump backwards when it comes to the murders. Okay, I'm just letting you know.
Oh, I figured.
Okay, so February 10th, 2002, Ronald is arrested again, but this time he actually assaulted a woman in Terrebonne Parish during Mardi Gras Festival. Now, the claim was that the lady was driving erratically and hit a baby stroller in a parking lot. No, I don't think there was a baby in the stroller, but the fact that she came blazing through and hit a baby stroller kind of pissed off everybody, including Ronald. So Ronald, she gets out of her car and her and Ronald start to argue, and he's basically telling her like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So he's demanding that she apologizes to him, to the people, everything. So she does actually apologize. So in turn, he punches her in the face.
Oh, well, thanks for the apology. Hallelujah. You can't make this shit up.
So he does get charged with assault. Later, the charges are dropped, of course, because there's an agreement that between him and the woman that they will both apologize to each other and make amends.
And not punch each other
in the face. So in total, Ronald was arrested more than 7 times for these different types of charges and was never actually held in jail for any of them. This is just the way it is.
So it's the build up to say, oh, I can get away with shit.
Kind of, but no. So just to set things off right, after Ronald was charged with the 1996 rape of the young boy, that he was held on bail for $100,000, and then they couldn't find the kid, so they let him go. He decides, I will never let that happen again. As a normal person would be like, holy fuck, I messed up. I will never fucking let that happen again.
No, he's just not going to let the people free.
No. He said, I was not going to ever go to jail again. So he decided that he would never do that again. And by that, I mean, he would never let his victims escape again.
Exactly.
So Ronald came up with what he felt was a foolproof plan. He would find men. And now most of the men were drug addicts or homeless men that would not be missed very easily, right? Like he was like, I'll find the guys that literally are living on the streets that it'll take a long time before people actually realize they're missing. So that's who he focuses on. Right. And then he would persuade the men to come back to his home with him. And then he would offer them money for sex. Now, once they were in his house, he would tell them that he wanted them to be tied up, which if you're part of a prostitution lifestyle, you're just going to do the stuff for the money. So they would do it. Now, some of his victims were not gay that he had killed. So in those cases, what he did is he would promise those men sex with his wife, who he did not have, by the way. And those men, he would tell them, he'd bring them to his home and say, my wife, like, she's down for this. We'll pay you. And then they go to the home and he gets them into the bedroom and says, but she's a little shy. So we need you tied up. And she likes her men to be bonded for this experience.
And then boom, door gets kicked open and Aretha's standing there.
Well, it's not Aretha, but Patti LaBelle.
And then boom, the door gets kicked open and Patty's standing there.
No. So once he would have the men tied up, he would rape them. And then he would strangle or smother them. He then would dump their bodies in one of 6 different areas in southern Louisiana. So I'm giving you the preface of how this happened. And then, yes, I will go into every victim that he has admitted to. Starting in July 1997, Ronald picks up 19-year-old David Mitchell while he's hitchhiking home from his grandmother's house. Now, he takes David back to his house, ties him up, rapes him, kills him, leaves his body in a sugarcane field. Now, the thing about David is David's family, well, actually, I'll get to it in a minute. Hold on. David's body is actually found July 14th, 1997, so the next day. And David's death is actually initially ruled as an accidental death because they found water from the sugarcane fields that were in his lungs. And so they ruled it as an accidental drowning. Now, I don't know if all of you know, but you can technically drown on 1 tablespoon of water.
Yep.
So that could be. However, David's family insisted that this could not be true because David was an excellent swimmer. Also, the liquid that was found in his body, in his lungs, was too low for him to really have drowned in. And never mind the fact that his pants were down around his ankles when he was found.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I do when I'm choking on water is I drop my pants down.
I'm saying, like, why would that even be your first? Okay. Now,
You like cough so hard, just boom, your
like
pants
what?
fall to the floor.
Like, what the fuck? And David's family also came out and adamantly denied that he was a drug addict or homeless or anything like that. So he is like one of the outliers of this. There's only like 2 or 3 kids. Yes, I say kids because some of them were kids that were not falling into his category of people. And David happened to be one of them. Now, in December of 1997, Ronald strangles 20-year-old Gary Pierre. Now, his body is found fully clothed in the St. Charles Parish. And by the way, when I first started researching this, I was like, why is he dropping these bodies off at churches, right? Until I was like, that can't possibly be right. And I looked it up and no. So a parish is how Louisiana is split up in their state. There's actually a total of 64 parishes in Louisiana. So it's kind of like a county.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was kind of like, okay, that makes more sense because dropping them off on the doorstep of a church really doesn't make any sense to me. So then in July 31st, 1998, Ronald kills 38-year-old Larry Ranson. In October of 1998, Ronald meets 27-year-old Oliver LeBanks. Now, Ronald claims that they had mutual sex, but that Ronald ends up beating and strangling Oliver afterwards. And Oliver's body is found on October 4th, and they do actually find traces of semen in and on his body from an unknown male at that time. Then on October 1998, Ronald meets up with 16-year-old Joseph Brown. He lures Joseph to his truck, claiming that he's going to sell Joseph crack. And they actually do drugs together. And then Ronald beats Joseph several times over the head with a blunt object and then proceeds to suffocate him with a plastic bag. Then in November 1998, Ronald does a very similar thing to 18-year-old Bruce Williams. So he's just kind of whatever. Then in May of 1999, Ronald meets 21-year-old Manuel Reed. Manuel offers drugs to Ronald. Now Ronald's like, hell yeah. And he's like, come with me, come into my truck, you know? And so they go into his truck, and it's in the truck that he rapes and strangles Manuel. And Manuel's body is dumped into a dumpster. And after he is discovered and the cops come and he's in the coroner's office, there are also traces of semen on his body from an unknown male, an unknown male.
I was like, that's going to be impressive.
June 1999, Ronald kills 21-year-old Angel Mija. He ends up leaving Angel in the street, and the coroner actually has decided that Angel most definitely had been tied up before dying. And it's at this point that the police kind of start putting pieces together, because now they're seeing that Angel, Joseph, and Gary all knew each other and they all lived near each other. So now they're kind of like, what's going on? What's going on? Something's weird. So then in August of 1999, Ronald meets 34-year-old Mitchell Johnson. They meet up for sexual favors in exchange for drugs. And then they meet up and they go to a forest. So they don't go back to his house. And they go out to this forest outside of Metairie. And this is where Mitchell is actually tied up, raped, and strangled to death. And his body is found September 1st, 1999. Then in January of 2000, Ronald kills 23-year-old Michael Vincent. Then in October, Ronald actually meets and becomes friends with Kenneth Randolph Jr., who, by the way, has been prosecuted 3 times for child molestation. He lives near Ronald in the trailer park, and they become buddies. Then Ronald tells Kenneth one day, hey, I have this young girl at my house. If you want to come over, you know. Kenneth said, abso-fucking-lutely, and he follows Ronald to his house, and it's at his house that Ronald decides this is the time, and he attacks and kills Kenneth. I'm not gonna lie.
We're all thinking
I'm not trying to give any credit here to Ronald.
Don't have to say it, but we're all thinking it.
Anywho, moving on. His body was found October 6th, 2000 in a field outside of the city. Then on October 12th, 2002, Ronald meets 26-year-old Anoka Jones, and he actually attacks Anoka. He attacks him first. He doesn't try to buy drugs or he fucking attacks him. Then he ties him up, rapes him, and kills him, and he dumps his body under an overpass. And his body is actually found only a few hours later. Then later in 2002, Ronald and his sister move into a new place. So they move out of their trailer in this one area and they move to this other area, and he gets a job as a specialist who checks electricity levels at a local power supply company. Now, this job allows for him to travel periodically, which I think is why they think he did more than 23, because he admits to 23, but if he was traveling, come on now. Now, he ends up meeting 19-year-old Detrell Woods. Now, Detrell's body remained missing until May 24th of 2003. And it was finally found in a reed field, and his manner of death was ruled as asphyxiation, but it was considered accidental for quite some time because Detrell had suffered from asthma. So
and he probably got an asthma attack and his pants flew off.
No, he didn't. They didn't.
Okay, I'm
they
just
had
making
his
sure.
pants on.
I'm just making sure.
But I'm just saying, like, the initial thought was, well, to be fair, yes, he could have died from asphyxiation if he had an asthma attack. So I can understand that. But what I'm not understanding is these people are being strangled to death. Are we just not looking for the bruising on their neck?
No.
And you can't tell me that there's not bruising on their neck.
But if you're having an asthma attack, I would grab my throat and squeeze it till it bruised like I'm choking.
I don't.
No, that's stupid.
Okay. So then in October 2004, Ronald lures 46-year-old Larry Matthews to his home, promising him drugs. Now, Larry ends up becoming unconscious due to an overdose of drugs, to which then Ronald decides this is the time where I rape him and strangle him to death anyways. And then they find his body 20 miles away from Ronald's home. So let's not save the guy that's ODing. Let's just take advantage of this opportunity.
He's like,
Then in October 2004, Ronald kills 21-year-old Michael Barnett, and his body is found October 24th, 2004. Then in February of 2005, Ronald kills 22-year-old Leon Lirette. April 2005, Ronald meets 31-year-old August Watkins. Now, August Watkins is a homeless man that is told that he could stay the night in Ronald's car by Ronald. So Ronald's like, listen, if you want to come with me to my house, I'm not going to let you stay in my house, but I will let you sleep in my car, kind of get you out of the elements. And so he's like, okay, cool. So Ronald brings him back to his house, his trailer. And he's like, if you want to come in and drink, have a couple drinks or whatever, like that'll also help keep you warm at night or whatever. So he's like, okay, cool. So he goes in, he starts drinking. And then he tells him while he's sitting there drinking, hanging out, that there was a female in the home, which my guess would be he said probably his wife, but it doesn't actually say, that was totally offering to have sex with him as well while he's just there drinking, having a good time. But he had to be tied up first. So she needed him tied up so that she could be in control. Obviously, they end up finding the body of 31-year-old August Watkins. Now, it's about this time when his body is found that the police go, we might have a serial killer on our hands.
You think?
17 fucking bodies later. 17 bodies it took for them to go, we might have a serial killer. Now, they knew there was something going on, but to the level of serial killer status, it took 17 people to die for them to even think. And by the way, to die in very similar manners and be left in whatever. So I'm just like, are we shitting? Anyways. So once they think they have a serial killer, they decide, well, we probably should tell the FBI. So they hand this case over to the FBI, and they actually form like a task force, and they do all the things that they needed to do probably like 17 bodies ago.
Right. But you're only at 17. There's 5 more that happen.
Right.
Nope. 6.
Well, on April 2005, Ronald kills 23-year-old Kurt Cunningham. Then in the summer of 2005, Ronald kills 28-year-old Alonzo Hogan, and he also kills 17-year-old Wayne Smith. September of 2005, Ronald murders 40-year-old Chris DeVille. Now, Chris was hitchhiking out of Napoleonville after Hurricane Katrina, and Ronald dumps Chris's body in a reed field. Now, he is found 1 month later, and he was only able to be identified by the personal items and the ID card that was left near his body because humidity, decomposition, especially right after Hurricane Katrina. I can't even, just the shit that was going on. that it's like a perfect storm to decompose a body faster. Then in November of 2005, Ronald kills 21-year-old Nicholas Pellegrin. And Nicholas's parents did tell the police that he had been threatened by drug dealers over a $400 debt. Therefore, his death was initially ruled as a drug-related death when they found him. Then, October 14th, 2006. This is the last confirmed victim. He was 27-year-old Christopher Sutterfield. And apparently, the two men had actually met in the summer and they were dating. And when they were out on a date, Ronald hit Christopher over the head with a heavy object. And his body was found. When his body was found, they talked to, family and anybody that would, and they actually were able to report that the last time they saw Christopher, he was actually with a male who was driving a black SUV, but they could not describe the man. Okay, so these are all the people. And again, these are all confirmed deaths at the hands of Ronald Dominique, confirmed.
And there's some decent gaps, especially
in the
earlier ones.
Yes.
So
I'm
guessing there's more.
That was something that made me go, is in the beginning it was like one and then one the next year and then another like 9 months. And then here it's literally like April, then the summertime, then September, then November, then October. And it's just like constant. And so I think there was definitely more in there. And because of the way that he would kill them and leave them, he had 6 different parishes that he left his victims in. Well, a parish, again, is like a county. It could be anywhere in that county.
Yeah, I think about 6 counties over here, and that's a pretty wide spread.
Yeah, and it not necessarily are they found in the same spots. They're just found in specific areas. So on November 2006, a man calls the police and tells them that he had been lured into Ronald's home. And he says that he was offered money to have sex with Ronald's wife, but that Ronald told him that he needed to be tied up at first. And that kind of freaked him out. And he was like, yeah, listen, I'm not into that. And he's, Ronald's like, listen, she's willing.
She got boobies.
And he was just, whatever happened, he was able to escape. Like, he didn't actually get tied up. He was able to leave. Some sources said that Ronald was like, fine, then get the fuck out of here. However, I don't know why that would be somebody calling the cops. You know what I mean? I mean, you're not going to call the cops for that.
No, not
at all. So clearly he probably tried to tie him up. Maybe he fought him off, maybe whatever. Now, police end up talking to Ronald and he denies the accusation and is super cooperative, actually, enough so that he even gives them a blood sample at the request of the police, because they literally, at this point, based off what this guy is saying, they're like, listen, we've got a serial killer out here somewhere. We might as well question
anything
him.
That could be even close.
Let's get a DNA sample from this guy and let's just see if there's any connections. Never mind the fact that he also on his record had the fact that he had been accused of raping a young boy. They basically were asking, in all honesty, to rule him out, not to think he was doing it.
And then ding, ding,
and
ding,
there's a few reasons
it
why.
Linked with the sperm.
Number one, he was only 5'5" and he was very overweight and walked with a cane. And he had heart problems. So you actually don't think this is a man that's killing a bunch of people. Okay? So he's very not the type of person that you would ever think would be able to go out and not let alone like lure these men in.
But physically assault them.
Physically be able to overcome them and then move their bodies. This motherfucker walks with a cane and has a heart condition. Like, he's not the one. So they're like, we're getting samples from anybody. So just give it up. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So he does. Well, on December 1st, 2006, his DNA comes back to match the two men, LeBanks and Reed, who were both found with the semen, matches his DNA. And so they're like, cool, we are going to go fucking arrest him. Well, guess what?
He's not there.
He's not there because he decided that he would go live in a homeless shelter. So that's actually where he was, and they went and arrested him there. Now, after he's arrested, he does tell the police that he knew it was only a matter of time before he would be arrested after giving them his blood sample. So he actually moved out of his sister's house so as not to inconvenience her.
Wow, what a nice guy.
Now, he does end up confessing, telling and confessing in detail to 23 murders. However, he refuses to plead guilty to these murders. He says, listen, pretty much everybody was a willing willing participant in these activities. And if they didn't want to do it, I just let them go. But you killed them.
Right. He let their soul go.
I don't think they were like, go ahead and kill me, bro. Like, I don't quite understand that.
He's like, I release your soul.
Now he did, but then he goes on. So he says, I'm not going to plead guilty because they were willing to participate in all this stuff with me. But then he goes on to say, I did actually kill them because I didn't want any witnesses because I'm unwilling to serve prison time. Like, again,
Well, guess what, bud?
don't break the law.
Stop breaking the law, asshole.
I'm like, what? So on September 24th, 2008, he accepts a plea deal. And he is sentenced to 8 life sentences without parole. His plea deal was actually to plead guilty to all the charges in exchange for no death penalty. And not even all of them, just like, I mean, all the charges, but to only receive, you cannot, whatever the sentence ends up being, it just can't be death penalty. Like, bitch.
I think that's crap.
Thank you. You had his DNA.
You had him.
You
had him.
You had his DNA. Now, I understand, I guess the whole point is you just got him to plead guilty to 23 murders instead of charging him for 2.
Makes your books look better.
Right. That's kind of how I feel. But at the same time, probably the family members
Gives
of the
closure.
victims, it gives them closure. Yeah. So Ronald Dominique is currently serving his sentence in the Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola, living his life.
With a cane and a heart problem.
I guess. I guess. I do have some shots if you would like to hear
I am
them.
ready for these.
So during Ronald's 7 years of murdering, he was actually never considered a suspect or even ever was on the police's radar until that man called the cops. Never. Why? Well, because he was known as a soft man who might seem a little off, but never came across as harmful to anyone. Never.
Those are the ones you have to look at.
Except for the young man that claimed that he raped him. Except for the woman he punched in the face. Like, do we not look into backgrounds?
She hit a stroller. So
like,
pow-pow.
do we not pay attention? Like, are you kidding me? Now, one of Ronald's victims, Leon Lirette, was actually a suspect in the murder of Anoka Jones before he died. Now, he had lived with Anoka and was the last person to be seen with him before his body was found. He had also at one point lived with Michael Barnett, which was another one of Ronald's victims. So originally, Leon was somebody they were looking at as for killing at least Anoka, if not potentially Michael too. But then Leon actually ends up getting murdered too. So I guess that puts that theory out. Now, Ronald did agree as part of his plea deal to show police the areas where the bodies were dumped. Not where bodies were, but literally
where they were dumped so he could prove it was him.
Not even that. I think they're looking for more bodies. I think they're like, where do you dump your bodies? And he's like, well, these are the parishes. And he would bring them and be like, oh, I've dumped some here.
So then if they went to one where no body was found, they'd be like, let's start digging.
Well, even if they
had like a John Doe.
No, like he didn't bring them to a location where the body was. He showed them the areas that he dumped bodies. So like in these areas, they would look in swamps or in the forest or because it's anywhere in that area. But that's how they found out that he dumped bodies in 6 different parishes, because he literally said, well, I dumped them in this parish, this parish, this parish, and he would show them. But now it's up to them to go find and if there's any bodies that eventually come out, or at this point it would be bones that come out and they can somehow link it together. Sure. But that was part of his plea deal. Because I think they were trying to see, like, are there more? And you're just not telling us. I do have one question. And I did put this in on my shots, but I do have a question. How the fuck did the sister not have any idea this was going on? Like, they shared a home and their home was a trailer in a trailer park. First of all, trailers are very small and have very thin walls. I truly do not understand how somebody can bring home somebody. You can't tell me they were quiet.
No, but that's benefit of the doubt. Maybe she worked a night shift or something where she wasn't home.
And that's true. To be fair, he did have so many gaps. There is a very good chance that his sister just was never home when he was doing this, or his mother, because he lived with his mother. But like I was telling this story, I was talking about this with our son, and I said, but the other part of it is not even his sister. What about everybody outside of the home? Because even if it's a manufactured home, not even a trailer, although it specifically states trailer, but let's say it's a manufactured home, they are still thin ass walls. And your son looks at me and goes, well, you know what they say? What happens in the trailer park stays in the trailer park.
Hey, they got to protect each other.
And there is actually something to that.
And to be honest, like part of the tying up could have been, being gagged.
Gagged.
Or,
But you can't. But being gagged isn't going to make it to where you can't scream. It's just going to muffle your scream. There's no way you can tell me that nobody in that neighborhood heard anything. But I think our son is right on saying that a lot of the times, I think it's really sad, but I think this is also why you will find and hear, first of all, a lot about women who are severely abused by their husbands or boyfriends, and they live in trailer parks. Like, you can't tell me that your neighbors are not hearing this shit going on, and they're not calling the cops for a reason.
Business, June.
Exactly. They're minding their business, which I'm all for, minding your own fucking business. I totally am.
Except for when there's a blood-curdling scream.
I don't even know. Like, I say all that shit, but to be honest with you, like, yeah, I mean, I guess if there was a blood-curdling scream, I'd probably be like, Jay, you got to call the cops. Like,
yeah.
I don't.
Especially if there was, like, 20 of them.
Well, that's the thing. Over and over, like, I just don't understand how you live in a trailer park and nobody fucking saw nothing. And okay, final shot is the sheriff that arrested him said that he killed them because he didn't want to get caught. But I would think that he discovered somewhere on the way to killing 23 that it was not just because of that. I think he discovered he liked it.
Yeah, and that's probably why. No, it is 100%, but I think it's part of the reason that if you look at the beginning, there's big gaps.
Yeah.
And then it got small because he was enjoying it more.
Yeah, and that could...
He needed to feed the addiction.
And that could very well be true. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy. I mean, to be honest, I'm not mad about the sentence. He doesn't... I mean, I'm always for a death penalty if there is one, but if you give him 8 life sentences without parole, he can't get out, that's fine too. Let his ass rot in jail. Especially because part of me is like this, though. If I was the prosecuting attorney, I probably would have done the same thing. Why? Because he fucking told the police, I killed them because I am unwilling to spend my life in prison. Well, now you're going to get 8 lives in prison. Now so instead of getting the death penalty and not having to live in prison, you now get to spend 8 ass lives in prison. You are never getting out because you were unwilling to spend your life in prison.
Yep.
So I think that actually is a more proper punishment than the death penalty because he gets to sit in jail forever. So that is the story of Ronald Dominique and his 23 plus murders.
Number 48.
Episode number 48.
Yeah. All right. And with that, we get to the part where we thank you for listening. And we thank you for sharing. We thank you for downloading. And we look forward to bringing you the next one and hope you share and download and listen again.
Yep. I guess this is the part where I say goodbye.
And I'll follow that up with a bye-bye.